Hello, let me walk you through how to take your data map that you have developed and put it into REDCap. So the first thing we need to do is we need to open up REDCap and we need to create a project. Don't forget to stick your last name at the front or your user ID. The next thing we need to do is we need to identify what type of project we're going to be needing. Now, in my data map, it says here that I'm going to use survey mode, where a participant will fill it out, and it says that a researcher will fill it out. That means that the very first question it asks me is, do I need to enable the survey? And the answer is yes. The second question is, do I need longitudinal? Now, for the one that I'm going to share now, I'm not going to do a longitudinal one, so I don't need that one. I'm done with this particular section. I'm not using MyCap. The third, the next section is asking me about the online designer. So I'm going to click on the online designer. I'm going to update the name of this instrument. I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it my participant survey, because that's the name I gave it in my data map. You can have this be anything you want. Oftentimes, if you see one of my specific templates, you're going to see it called landing page from me because it's the very first place you're going to land. The survey needs to stay in the first instrument location if I want to have a public survey link later on. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that up now. I don't have to worry about it. My next one is called researcher data form. So let's do that one. I'm going to create a form here. I'm going to call it researcher data form, if I can spell. And my next one is going to be my upload location. And my third or fourth one, I believe, is going to be my transformed and my very last one, which I put on every project I ever do. It's as the database person and the way that I'm going to control my records. I call this record management. Okay, now let's go back to our data map for a moment. The first set of questions here says that I'm going to have a name, a date of birth, calculated age, and age with a slider. That's my first section. So let's go inside the participant survey. I'm going to add a field. My first one's going to be a text field called name. And my variable is going to be called name. It does not have any validation. I don't have to worry about that. My next one is going to be a date of the form. And it's going to have a validation of a day, month, year. And I want to build an action tag of today so that I can automatically capture that. I don't want to have to do the math on that. The next one is going to be a date of birth. I copied the data form one, and I'm just going to change some items here. I'm going to clear the action tag. I'm going to put a date of birth. So going to be a day, month, year. The fourth item is going to be a calculated field. So I add a field. I'm going to calculate a field. This is going to be age calculated. When I'm doing a calculation, sometimes it's helpful to go to this special function feature and get some ideas on what my possibilities are for how I might do this. I want to do a birthday and I want to round it to the nearest whole number. So I'm going to copy this one right here just to get an idea. Now, I don't want it to be based on today though. I want it to be based on that field that I had called, what did I call that? Okay, this happens to me often. So the way I do this is I duplicate the form I'm looking at and I click on the code book so that I can see what I called it. I called it form date. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to bring it back over here to my calculation. It's just a way that I can easily figure that out. And then my date of birth was DOB. So you just have to make sure that whatever you fill in here matches what you've actually got in your variable names. It tells me that I'm valid. That doesn't mean that it's going to work. It just means that my syntax is accurate. Here we go. I'm going to save it. Now you can see, here's the calculation down here. I believe I said on, let's go back really quickly. I think I said I was going to hide this. Did I say I was going to hide it? I did. Okay, well, let's hide it. Hide. I'm going to, you can pick in action tags. There's lots of action tags. I could pick hidden. That's going to hide it from everybody. Hide from the app. That's only going to hide it inside the REDCap app. Hide form, which is going to keep it so that the survey person can see it, but the data entry person cannot. Hide from the PDF. It won't be on any printed paperwork. Hide survey. That's the one I want, which is where it's going to hide it from the participant, but not from the researcher. Save it. The next thing I said is I wanted the person to be able to pick theirs. So I'm going to call this age slider. Oops. It's not a calculated field in this case. It's going to be a slider field. I want the person to be able to pick from 0 to 100. I don't want to display the value, display number value. I do want to display, I want them to pick the number that matches what they want to say. I don't want a middle number though. And I want it to be right horizontal, so it goes like horizontal left to right, but I could choose to make it vertical if I wanted to, but I want it right horizontal. So now it's going to be a little slider like this. Okay, beautiful. What's the next thing I said? And that's my entire form for the survey, participant survey form. So my next form here says collect information from a researcher staff member. I want a date with the validation field. I want a multiple choice field. Okay, so I could click this button right here that says next instrument and head over there, or I can go back to my data collection instruments and I can click on the next form. The first one we said was going to be the date. You can't have a variable that's going to be the same over and over and over again. So many times I come up with it, some kind of form, a nomenclature that means the form. So I could say this is RDF to stand for researcher data form. That would be a good one. So let's do that. Underscore RDF. So everything that's in this form is going to have an RDF on the back end. Again, we want to capture the date today. So let's just go ahead and do that so that it's done. What did I say my next option was going to be? A multiple choice, single choice answer. So a radio field, a multiple choice, single choice, multi-answer. So a checkbox field. So let's get ourselves a radio field first. And this is going to be my radio choices, which is single option. So my first one's going to be choice 1. My second one's going to be choice 2. My third one is going to be choice 3. So I'm just going to call this radio. my next one I said I was going to do was going to be a multiple choice check boxes, and this is multiple answers. So let's just call this the checkbox. And our first one will be box 1, box 2, box 3. Okay. And I think, oh, let me get rid of that. What was my next thing here? It says that next I'm going to go to a collection of information from a secondary source. So this would be like if I was going to upload items. So I'm going to hit the next instrument here. I'm going to make it a text field because it's just easier to upload it this way. Upload data 1. So whatever it is, like if I was pulling something from Epic, this would be a good way to upload it, or if it was coming from somewhere else, I could do it that way. I'm just going to give myself 2 fields to kind of show you what that looks like. Okay, now I think I said we were going to transform data next. Create a form of transfer data, translate the information into something you can analyze. Putting this data side by side is helpful. Yes, that's absolutely true. It's very good to do this. So I want to be able to calculate, let's see here. Probably should have thought through this before we started this. What is it that I can show you that would be helpful? Okay. Okay, let's do a calculated field, and this time let's we need to see what our options are again. So I'm going to go look at the code book really quickly here, and my option here was a radio, my option here was checkbox, and I've got ages. So how about if I start with the calculated age? If the calculated age, and let's give ourselves some special functions here that's maybe going to do some math for me so that I don't have to do it later on. So there's an if option right here that I can do with conditional, that like, so in the example here, it says if the weight is greater than 100, then 44, else 11 is the example they have. So let's do something that's kind of like that, but not quite with age. So how about if I do, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab calculated age. And if the calculated age is greater than 18, so let's say they're an adult, then put in a 0 for no, else it gets a 1 for yes. Yeah, I think that might be good. Above 18. So, right, these are people that are above 18. I think that'll work. Okay, so it says down here, it's got a checkbox with a valid. That means that the syntax is accurate. How I have it written is accurate for this particular scenario. So that's transform data that I could use to subset data later on. What other kinds of data can I subset here? I could do a calculation to figure out if date of birth and calculation are accurate. So age equals calculated age, right? I'm gonna call it age equal age. Okay, so I could say, here, let's see if there's like something that's not an if, but instead maybe a true false, or we could do an adding. Oh, maybe we should do that in a moment. Let's see here. I think we're still going to have to do an if statement for this particular scenario. We'll try it. So if calculated age equals age, so if the two ages age slider. So if they equal each other, then we're going to call it true, else we're going to call it false. Let's get rid of all the rest of that junk. Okay, so if the calculated age equals the slider age, which, so this is what the computer has calculated equals what the participant has said, then we're going to call it true, else it's false. So that makes sense to me. Okay, so those are two really good. Let me give you a sum just so that you can see how you would do that, which is a very common one if you are if you're doing some kind of a form that would be, let's see here, if you're doing a form that would be like a test of some kind, maybe a scoring form or something like that. Okay, so what you could do in that case is you could use like sum, or you can just add them together. That's another option. But sum is a better one in the event you have something that is not complete. Like let's say somebody forgets something. So let's sum the radio button with the checkbox button, which honestly doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of what we're actually doing, but I'm just trying to show you the possibility here. It's got a question mark here. It's trying to tell me that I have to fill that in with a specific item. So I could say checkbox for box 1. So I could say add the radio for checkbox for radio plus the for, so I could say add radio and add checkbox 1. So if box 1, that's an option. You know what might be an easier way to show you would be checkbox 1, 2, and 3, because that makes a little bit more sense in real life. Here, let's do that. Okay, so my syntax is incorrect at the moment, so you can see that there's no valid button at the bottom. On this, I'm currently missing a bracket right here. I'm also missing a comma right here. And if I did this accurately, oh, and I'm missing a bracket right here. Okay, now it's accurate and it gave me the valid button. Okay, so I'm gonna upload that, and some checkbox is what I'm doing here. So, okay, last but not least, we need to have a record instrument. So we're gonna come over here. I'm going to set up my record status box for my record management form. I want a multiple choice radio button. Okay. Record status. For me, 1 is always active and inactive. And then depending on what you're doing with it will depend on which one you would choose. So if it's a duplicate record, then I would do that, or I would do something like that. My next box is going to be, why is this record inactive? Right, so specify inactive, and I'm going to turn this into a note box. And I like to have a little bit of extra room, so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say left horizontal for that. So now I've got a box that I can type in my notes. Okay, I think we may have created all of our options. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So let's go really quickly and enable the survey into a survey form. I'm going to keep all the defaults at the moment. I don't really want to show you how to set each of those pieces up. So we're just going to turn it on, get it started, get it up and going. And then let's go ahead and pick some roles. The next thing that we would want to do here is we'd come here to user rights. We need to make ourselves some roles. We're going to make a developer role. This person is going to have access to everything. You could call this your data manager. You could, whoever this person is, it needs to be someone with the highest power to everything in your world. I actually don't want to do the API. Yeah, okay. Then let's get a data entry person. This person is going to be like very limited in what they can and can't do. We're going to let them have access to the survey. We're going to let them have the ability to see the reports but not edit the reports. We're going to let them see the logging but not edit the logging. Same with file repository. And they can create records, but they can't rename or delete records. They can export data and edit data. You do need to take that into consideration if you want them to be able to edit data, because this might be something you don't want them to do. And then there's all kinds of other types of roles you might have. You might have the statistician, or that's de-identified, or all kinds of other options. But for me, in the particular case that we're doing here, I think this is a good spot. Okay, so let's go and add some records. The first way we're going to add a record is the way we would if we had like a participant. So the first participant comes in here and they're going to put their test record 1 is going to go in here. Their date of birth needs to be, let's see here. Well, let's just go a few years back. And now I have to do some math because I didn't think about this when I did this. I think that's a 16-year-old. Hope so. Okay, so that was one record. Let's do another record. This record is going to be, I don't know, what is it? Oh, here, let's go easy. I think this is 20 years. Oh, no. So this should get me somebody that is under 18 and somebody that is over 18. So those are two of my scenarios that were listed. And now let's do record 3. Let's get somebody that is not going to match. So that person will not match. So, okay. Now I've added things in for as a participant. If I come to my record status dashboard, I can see I have 3 records here. There are 3 survey forms that have been filled out by the participants. So let's do the first person here. This person comes in and you've observed them, and you this is what you observe for that person. Then I'm going to come in and let's pretend for a moment that I uploaded data and there was some kind of I don't know, there's some kind of item there that's like that, and then there's maybe some kind of item there that's like that. So perhaps it's a test and a value for a test from Epic or something. Then I'm going to come in here to my transform data. I've got calculations built into here. So it automatically said that this person is above 18. It gave me a 1, which, wait a minute here. If a calculated age is greater than 18. I thought this person was 16. And I'll have to go back and look and see what I put. It does say that my calculated age matches each other, which at least they match. That's good. And then my calculation, it added the 3 together because all of them are checked. Okay, and then for my record management, I'm going to say this person's active, that kind of thing. So that fills out all of that person. I need to check, it does say 16. So I must have my calculation backwards. Let's just look at that really quickly before we go any further. If they're greater than, I got these backwards. If they're greater than 18, then I want it to be a yes, else a no. So I just have my values backwards. The challenge here is that it saved the data here, so I got to come back and I've got to check it. And you can see that if I hit the history button, it says that there's a 1 here. And it's actually needs to be turned to a 0. So let me save and stay. If I look at the history button again, you can see it went from 1 to 0. So that's really nicely that worked out. Good for me. Let me go back to my record status dashboard. Let's choose 2. And this one is 1, 1, and 1. That should be correct. Now, if I'm on record number 3, this is the one that should be inaccurate for the data number. And here it is. The calculated age doesn't equal each other because it's saying that calculated age and age slider don't work. Let me save and exit and verify that by looking at it. It says it's 14 years old here, 50 years old here. They don't match. Okay, beautiful. So if I wanted to export this data and see what it looked like, I could go ahead and take a look at that really quickly. I'm going to go to my data exports. I'm going to export my data. I want it in a raw format at the moment so that I can do some analysis. I'm going to pull it up, and here is my data. I can move this into another program to do my analysis if I wanted to, or I could start pulling my pieces together right here for my my charts and my figures. So this is where I would go look at my data map really quickly. And I would say, okay, what did I say I was going to do with my data? Well, I said here that I was going to make a scatter plot with age and frequency. And I said here I was going to take my choices and I was going to make a frequency out of them. If I was doing this for real with real data, I probably would have been a little more specific. But I didn't. So I could use these 3 items here that are my transform data. That is an option for me. I can come over here. Now, I already know that my calculated age is inaccurate for this one right here, right? Because it says age equals 0 here, which means I can't trust these 2 values equal each other. So let's just pretend I chose that was an outlier, right? And let's say that I chose to just, what I could do is I could subset this data and I could call this one an outlier and I could just analyze off of these data. And here's my check on that. I could do that. Okay, I think this is a good kind of stopping point in terms of how do I operationalize my data map and how do I think of it about where it's going to go and what it's going to do. So please feel free to reach out if you need any assistance, and I am more than happy to help you with your needs.